The waiter's eyes widened as he watched the young woman count out 4 single-dollar bills, her hands trembling. What he didn't know was that across the restaurant, someone else was watching too, someone whose decision in the next 5 minutes would change her life forever. Sofia Martinez stared at the menu, her heart sinking with each item she scanned. Even the cheapest appetizer cost $12.99. She had exactly $4 to her name until her next paycheck, and her blind date was due to arrive any minute. The restaurant had looked modest from the outside, but inside, it screamed luxury she couldn't afford. She'd agreed to meet here because she was too embarrassed to suggest somewhere cheaper, and now she was trapped. "Would you like to order a drink while you wait?" the waiter asked, his crisp uniform making Sofia painfully aware of her second-hand dress. "Just water, please," she whispered, clutching her small purse. The waiter nodded and walked away, leaving Sofia to contemplate how quickly she could fabricate an emergency to escape before her date arrived. At the corner table, Ethan Reynolds observed the scene with interest. The son of billionaire developer James Reynolds, Ethan was accustomed to watching people pretend to be something they weren't, especially around him. But something about this woman's quiet dignity caught his attention. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, she was clearly terrified. Sofia's phone buzzed. A text from her blind date, running 15 minutes late. "Order whatever you want. Can't wait to meet you." Her stomach twisted. She couldn't order anything. She couldn't even afford the bread basket that other tables seemed to receive automatically. What had possessed her to agree to this date? After working double shifts cleaning houses alongside her mother to help pay for her community college classes, she should have known better than to step into a world that wasn't hers. What Sofia didn't realize was that in exactly 3 minutes, the restaurant's fire alarm would go off, not by accident, but because of a decision made by the quiet observer at the corner table. And that would only be the beginning. The alarm blared suddenly, causing everyone to jump. Staff rushed to explain it was a false alarm, but in the commotion, Sofia found a folded napkin placed on her table. Inside was a $100 bill and a handwritten note, "Everyone deserves dignity." No strings attached. She looked around frantically, but couldn't identify who might have left it. The restaurant settled back to normal, and Sofia felt a strange mixture of relief and unease. Who had noticed her predicament? And why would they help? When her date finally arrived, a loud, self-important man who barely apologized for his tardiness before launching into stories about his job in insurance, Sofia had already decided to use just enough of the mysterious money for a modest meal. She would find a way to pay the rest forward somehow. What she couldn't have known was that Ethan Reynolds wasn't done watching. The son of one of the city's wealthiest men had grown up surrounded by people who measured worth by bank accounts. Something about Sofia's quiet determination to maintain her dignity despite obvious financial struggles resonated with him in ways he couldn't explain. Sofia's mother, Elena, had raised her alone after her father abandoned them when Sofia was just 3 years old. For 15 years, Elena had cleaned the homes of the wealthy, including, ironically, the Reynolds estate, though Sofia had never made the connection. Elena had taught her daughter that true wealth came from character, not currency. Those lessons had shaped Sofia into someone who worked hard without complaint, who pursued her education in nursing despite the obstacles, and who never judged others by their possessions. As Sofia's uncomfortable date continued, with her blind date ordering the most expensive items while barely asking her a single question about herself, Ethan made a decision that would alter the course of multiple lives. He paid his bill and left, but what happened next would leave Sofia questioning everything she thought she knew about fate and fortune. 3 days later, Sofia arrived at her morning cleaning job, a penthouse apartment she and her mother had recently added to their schedule. The owner was rarely home, making it an easy job compared to some of the fussier clients. As she used her key to enter, she froze in the doorway. Sitting at the kitchen counter with a cup of coffee was the man she had noticed watching her at the restaurant. "You," she gasped, instinctively backing toward the door. "I'm Ethan," he said simply. "And I believe we have something to discuss." Sofia's mind raced. Was this a setup? Had he planned this somehow? What could a man who clearly had wealth possibly want from her? I didn't steal that money, she blurted out. I was going to find a way to pay it back. Ethan's expression softened. That's not why I wanted to meet you. Please, sit down. I promise I'll explain everything. What Sofia would learn in the next hour would challenge everything she believed about coincidence and connection. Ethan revealed that her mother had been cleaning his family's home for years. He had grown up watching Elena work with unmatched care and integrity, though he'd never connected that the Sofia Elena spoke of with such pride was the same woman he'd observed at the restaurant. Your mother talked about her daughter studying nursing while working multiple jobs, Ethan explained. I never paid much attention until I saw you counting those dollars at the restaurant. Something clicked. Sofia sat stunned. So the money was the least I could do, Ethan finished. But that's not why I arranged to meet you today. The truth was more complicated than a simple act of charity. Ethan's father, despite his billions, was dying of a rare condition that required specialized care. The family had hired numerous nurses, but none showed the combination of skill and compassion they desperately needed. When Ethan recognized Sofia from his mother's descriptions of Elena's talented daughter, he saw a possibility. I'm not offering you money, Ethan clarified. I'm offering you an opportunity, a nursing position with my father that would pay enough for you to finish your degree without working yourself to exhaustion. But only if you want it, and only because you've earned it through your own merit. Sofia's mind reeled. Was this real? Could she trust this offer from a stranger who had been watching her? And if she accepted, would she be compromising the independence she had fought so hard to maintain? What she didn't yet understand was that this opportunity would test not just her professional skills but her heart in ways she never imagined. The Reynolds family had secrets that money couldn't solve, and Sofia would soon find herself at the center of emotional currents that had been building for decades. Over the following weeks, Sofia began working with James Reynolds, the intimidating patriarch whose billions couldn't buy him health or happiness. Initially cold and demanding, James tested Sofia's patience daily. But she approached his care with the same dignity and determination that had caught Ethan's attention in the first place. Why don't you quit? Ethan asked one evening after his father had been particularly difficult. Most nurses don't last a week with him. Sofia looked up from organizing medications. Because everyone deserves compassionate care, even difficult billionaires, she replied simply. My worth isn't determined by how people treat me, but by how I treat them. Something shifted in Ethan's expression, a recognition that despite growing up with every material advantage, he had perhaps missed the most important lessons about human connection. As James's health deteriorated, Sofia became the unexpected bridge between father and son. Years of focus on wealth accumulation had left the Reynolds family emotionally bankrupt. James had driven away his wife through neglect and had maintained only a formal relationship with Ethan, who had responded by rebelliously donating large portions of his trust fund to charitable causes, actions that infuriated his father. He thinks I'm wasting the family fortune, Ethan confided to Sofia one night as they sat by James's bedside while he slept. He doesn't understand that I'm trying to give our money meaning. Sofia studied Ethan's face in the dim light. Have you told him that? We don't talk about meaning in this family, Ethan said bitterly. We talk about markets and assets. Maybe that needs to change before it's too late, Sofia suggested quietly. What happened next would transform not just the Reynolds family but Sofia's understanding of wealth and worth. With Sofia's gentle encouragement, Ethan began sharing with his father not just financial reports but stories of the lives changed by his philanthropic work. At first, James dismissed these conversations, but as his condition worsened, something unexpected happened. He began to listen. Tell me again about the community clinic you funded, James asked Ethan one afternoon, surprising both his son and Sofia. It was the first time he had shown interest in anything beyond his business in months. That conversation became the first of many. As James faced his mortality, the walls he had built around his heart began to crumble. He spoke of regrets, of opportunities lost in pursuit of wealth, of the wife he had driven away and the son he had failed to truly know. Sofia witnessed this transformation with a mixture of professional satisfaction and personal wonder. The man who had once seemed a cold embodiment of privilege was revealing himself as simply human, flawed, frightened, and finally reaching for connection before it was too late. What Sofia couldn't have anticipated was how her presence was affecting not just James but Ethan. The billionaire's son who had first noticed her counting $4 bills had begun to see in Sofia a strength that all his family's money had never purchased, authenticity and purpose that transcended financial circumstances. 6 months into her employment with the Reynolds family, Sofia completed her nursing degree. James insisted on paying for a celebration dinner at the very restaurant where Ethan had first observed her on that fateful blind date. "I have something to tell you both," James announced as they finished their meal. Sofia and Ethan exchanged concerned glances, fearing news about his health. Instead, James revealed that he had restructured his will and his company. "Ethan, you were right all along. A fortune without purpose is just numbers on paper. I've established a foundation that will continue your philanthropic work long after I'm gone." Ethan sat stunned. "Dad, I don't know what to say." "Thanks, Sofia," James replied simply. "She helped me see what really matters before it was too late." Sofia shook her head. "I just did my job." "No," James insisted. "You did much more. You showed us both what real wealth looks like." As they left the restaurant, Ethan walked Sofia to her car. The night air was cool, and the city lights sparkled around them. "You transformed my father," Ethan said quietly. "And me." Sofia looked up at him. "I think you were both ready to change. Sometimes people just need permission to be their better selves." Ethan took her hand. "That day when I saw you counting those $4, I thought I was helping you. I never imagined you would end up saving my family." What Sofia didn't know as she stood there was that her journey with the Reynolds family was just beginning. The foundation James had established would eventually fund nursing scholarships for students from backgrounds like hers. Ethan would continue his father's legacy of meaningful philanthropy after James passed peacefully 6 months later. And Sofia would discover that true connection transcends all differences of circumstance and background. 1 year after that blind date where she had only $4 to her name, Sofia stood addressing the first class of nursing scholarship recipients funded by the Reynolds Foundation. Her mother Elena sat in the front row, tears of pride streaming down her face. "Worth isn't measured by what's in your wallet," Sofia told the students. "It's measured by what's in your heart and what you do with your hands. Sometimes the richest people are those who have learned to give of themselves when they have nothing else to give." As she finished her speech, she caught Ethan's eye in the audience. The man who had once been simply the billionaire's son was now her partner in both work and life, a relationship built not on financial equality but on shared values and mutual respect. That night, as they walked along the same street where the restaurant of their first encounter stood, Ethan stopped and turned to Sofia. "Do you ever think about how different our lives would be if you'd had enough money for that blind date?" he asked. Sofia smiled. "I think some connections are meant to happen, regardless of circumstances. Those $4 were the best shortage I ever experienced." Ethan laughed and pulled her close. "From $4 to a foundation. Who would have believed it?" "I would," Sofia said softly. "Because the most valuable things in life have never been about money." As they continued their walk under the stars, Sofia reflected on the journey that had brought them together, a journey that began with embarrassment and ended with purpose. Sometimes, she realized, our greatest limitations lead us to our greatest opportunities. And sometimes, being seen in our most vulnerable moments by the right person can change everything. If you found this story inspiring, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more tales of unexpected connections and life-changing moments. Remember that sometimes our greatest challenges lead to our most beautiful destinations, and that true wealth is measured not by what we have, but by what we give.